If you were looking at the early part of last season and trying to project where you felt like the Baltimore Ravens may finish, you were probably looking and say, this team's sitting in really damn good shape. This could be that type of year for them. They could be a legit contender. As you look at them, they were 5-1, and then they were, even at the bye, they were 6-2. And then they beat the Chiefs too. Like, you're almost halfway through the year and you're 6-2. You feel really, really good about your spot. It's not too often that a team starts 6-2 and then fails to make the playoffs. But you had the injuries and stuff to Lamar Jackson. You had other injuries across the team. And the bottom kind of fell out from under them. And they finished 8-9, and they did miss the playoffs. It's just crazy how quickly things can pivot and shift and change in the NFL. And it stands for not for long, and that can mean a variety of things. And one of those is that a really hot start is no guarantee or foretelling of any future success automatically, that's for sure. Because again, if you were sitting there and you were looking at putting odds on who was going to win that AFC North Division last year, like after 6 games or even after 8 games, you're looking at the Ravens. You're looking at the Ravens. Even if you felt like, hey, their schedule is getting tougher the rest of the year, still 6-2 is 6-2. And it didn't happen. Which brings us to this interesting conversation around Lamar Jackson and the thought around whether the Baltimore Ravens should be considering giving Lamar Jackson big-time money, whether they should pay him or not. I talk about whether Lamar Jackson should be taking what he gets or try to get every dollar he possibly can. The fact that it sounds like he might actually end up playing out the rest of his rookie contract, and then who knows what happens from there, probably franchise tag, who knows? Could get ugly in a hurry, who knows? It's really interesting to me that you have a number of people that say that I wouldn't pay Lamar Jackson that type of money. And granted, I understand, like, the quarterback market is just crazy. Like, you could be Kyler Murray and get a shit ton of money. But Lamar Jackson is a former league MVP. Like, he's a dynamic player. He's won playoff games. Like, he's done these different things. Now, I know last year he missed some time due to injuries and whatnot, but damn, how many teams in the league wish they had Lamar Jackson, even with some of the flaws in the passing game. But even when you look at some of the flaws in the passing game, outside of Mark Andrews, who's an absolute beast, where the hell else is he supposed to throw the ball? Seriously. And it surely doesn't get any better when you trade away Hollywood Brown. Now, the fact you were able to flip that into a first-round pick, so be it, but golly. They traded away Hollywood Brown. You're really hoping Rashad Bateman's going to take a big leap in year 2, that's for sure. I just find it interesting that Lamar Jackson gets a lot of criticism. And, just like with anybody, some criticism is valid. I feel like sometimes there's a little too much on Lamar. Because even when you talk about the quarterback position in general, we tend to give way too much credit to quarterbacks when their teams win. We tend to give them way too much blame when their team loses. Right? And when you look at it, if anything, you would point to their performance when Lamar Jackson didn't play last year. And although Tyler Huntley played well in a backup role and was exciting to see that, you could see Lamar Jackson's value to that team. There's no question about that. In this offseason, they did make a couple of moves. They signed Marcus Williams in their secondary, signed Morgan Moses to bring him on that offensive line. They had a draft that was really highly touted, which sometimes you tend to default to that with the Ravens. They have a lot of drafts over the years that get highly touted, and then as it comes back, like some of them are worthy of that touting and some of them aren't. Like, you look at Kyle Hamilton was their pick at 14. I don't even think he's starting to start the season. Whoopsie daisies. Linderbaum is the center. Ojabo, he'll eventually play coming off of the Achilles injury. I was frankly wishing the Bears would have drafted him in round 2, because that's the type of guy that was a top 10 talent that fell to the middle of round 2. Like, those are the things sometimes that the Ravens they are able to do. But Travis Jones could be a starter in year 1. Falele might be the long-term answer at right tackle. Like, this draft class does have the potential to be really, really good. But a lot of it is going to hang on whether Kyle Hamilton can figure it out at the NFL level. Looking at this team and how they're constructed, I look at both sides of the ball in terms of the running game. This is a team that, as long as they have Lamar, and frankly, even when they have Huntley in the lineup, doesn't matter. This is a team that can run the ball consistently, run it at an elite high level, and cause you problems in the way that they're able to get yards on the ground consistently. And then defensively, this is a unit that's really, really good against the run. And if you were playing 1980s, 1990s, even to some degree, football, you can run the ball and you can stop the run. You're going to win a lot of games. Well, in some ways, that still holds true in the modern NFL, too. The problem is that you need more than that in order to win big games, and especially playoff games, when it comes January, February time. And the concerns come around whether or not the Ravens have those other elements. Obviously, you have Justin Tucker. You're always going to be pretty good on special teams. But look at some of the concerns. The receiving core. You traded away Hollywood Brown. You didn't really replace him. How's that going to work? We could talk about Mark Andrews and how great he is, and he is. You can maybe project progression and growth out of Rashad Bateman in year 2. Okay, but what else do you have? Again, it's really easy to criticize Lamar Jackson as a passer, and sometimes he deserves some of the criticism, but sometimes he doesn't. If the talent around you not better, there's only so much you could do sometimes. And then it also didn't help last year. If it wasn't at the Thursday night Miami game when they lost to Miami and their offensive line was just destroyed by Miami's pass rush, they've got to protect Lamar Jackson better too, and that was a big problem in 2021. They did a piss-poor job of protecting Lamar Jackson and Tyler Huntley. And you can attribute that somewhat to injuries, sure, but you got to figure out a way to better protect your quarterbacks. Holy hell. And then on defense, their pass defense was certainly suspect at times last year, and that needs to shore up if this team wants to bang with some of the big boys in the AFC. As I look ahead to their schedule and try to project what the Ravens could be this upcoming year, I look at weeks 2 through 5 as a pretty critical stretch. Those look like 4 pretty important, key, challenging games. You host Miami, go to New England, host Buffalo, host Cincinnati. Good thing for them, 3 of those 4 games are at home. Bad thing for them is 3 of those 4 teams were playoff teams last year, not the smoothest way to start the season. However, difference here, maybe compared to last year, is the end of the season schedule lightens up a little bit, but it's still not a total cakewalk. You look at the last 5 weeks of the year. They've got to go to Pittsburgh, then to Cleveland, so you got back-to-back road games. Then you got a couple of home games sandwiched in between with Atlanta and Pittsburgh again. And then you got to go to Cincinnati to close out the season. The biggest key for success for Baltimore this year is Lamar Jackson stay healthy and play like he's playing in a contract year and he wants to get paid. And if he does, watch out for the Ravens. But if he gets hurt again and he misses some time, this team could fall behind the Browns and maybe the Steelers as well in that division. But for now, I'm going to assume Lamar Jackson plays well enough. I'm going to assume he stays healthy enough, plays most, if not all, of the season. I think the Ravens can win double-digit games this year. They had a lot of injuries and lost their former MVP quarterback, and they still finished 8-9. So I don't think it's crazy to think that they could finish 10-7 and finish behind the Bengals in this division.